Hi, friends. This is Shozi, and I'm here tonight to talk about three playwrights. I just finished a class. It was a theater class. It was grueling. And here was one of them. This was the play, actually, The Mystery of Irma Vep by Charles Ludlam. It was really a good, spectacular play. Unfortunately, Charles Ludlam died in the 80s from an AIDS related illness, and then or AIDS basically. Suzan-Lori Parks, which is very much alive, and this is one of her works, 365 plays in 365 days. There are some good pieces in here. And then August Wilson, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He's consummate. Actually, she's won a lot of awards as well. And in this play, Irma Vep has went on and on and on. It's been played all over the world. So these were really, and I chose 7 guitars. This is a really heartwarming, really get you in the gut type of play. So, okay, so I wrote a paper. I had to do several pieces on it. One of my pieces was a mini trailer slash video called Colored Guitars. So I'll upload that as well. But real quick, here's my paper, and I wanted to read it to you real fast. Okay, so bear with me. All right, Posturing with Colored Guitars. When one looks closer at the lines between an absurd, gay-oriented, and fast-moving play, a play based on lost dreams of an African-American blues artist, and the scattered and fractured fragments of plays that deal with the everyday thoughts of man and life, you begin to see parallels. These parallels move us beyond the normal boundaries of theater to the edges where audiences begin to question the mundane and ask the tough questions themselves. In this paper, I would like to discuss some of those parallels and perhaps blurred lines even, and see where or even if some of these lines intersect or veer off from one another completely in the realm of theater. Parallels or boundaries, or lack thereof, is what I would like to explore more fully within the time allotted in this epitaph and see where the road leads us. Parallels meaning a side-by-side observance, while boundary is a division or a limit. It is important to denote these distinctions due to lives being full of boundaries with laws and policies, and art being constructed of the parallels of life at times. For instance, with the 1984 introduction of The Mystery of Irma Vep by Charles Ludlam, himself a gay activist, playwright, actor, and also living with AIDS in a time fraught with controversy over both the HIV and AIDS illnesses and how it related to a gay or homosexual lifestyle. This in itself was a type of parallel art imitating life that was bound by laws and government, as well as pharmaceutical policies and practices inhibiting access to proper medication for AIDS patients. This helped propel his play into the limelight because it focused on homosexual actors playing the roles on stage, as it immersed audiences into a new beginning for theater for the absurd once again. Dealing with fast-moving dialogue, this is what theater of the absurd is, dealing with fast-moving dialogue, moody lighting, numerous costume changes, fast entrances and exits, along with ridiculous plot twists amidst an absolute stunning staging. This play has a premise of a melodrama where there is an eventual bad guy or villain who would entice the audience into investing their emotions into their scenes, and is highly prized by many viewers. This is considered active and thoughtful participation of spectators, which is relevant to the takeaway from what that playwright is trying to get across to them via the actors as his vehicle. Ludlam also went on to incorporate something at the time no other playwright had successfully attempted, and that was to creatively include pieces from all mediums into his plays, such as film, written works, and other well-known and documented dramatic devices. In comparison, the short play entitled Mrs. Keckley and Mrs. Lincoln by Suzan-Lori Parks, we see the distance yet the nearness of a Negro house servant to her mistress, thus illuminating the times or the changes from one century to another and the enslavement of another culture and group of human beings to another group. Appreciating how even the subject matter was supposed to be centered on the main character, Mrs. Lincoln, wife to the 16th President of the United States. The title starts with a considered lower status name first, and their topic of discussion was about things two females would talk about: fashion, men, and sex. The bonds between women seems to rise above at times over political and racial issues and situations. History would have us believe Caucasian females were consistently against their counterpart Black or African American females who were brought into their households to simply be subservient and wait upon their masters' needs as enslaved humans or beings. This is probably true to a certain extent. However, I am sure that not 100% of all households had held sway to that particular notion, and not all followed the groupthink of those darkened convictions and hearts to rule over an entire race and culture of people just for their own self-gratification. So either history has been changed along the way, or it has left vital moments out in order to serve its own agenda. Each one of us can be the judge of that, I believe. And in another of Parks's plays called The Rumor Mill, Parks explores the idea that Dr. Martin Luther King is still alive and living in Las Vegas. This leads one to wonder if this were real, like all of Elvis's sightings would have made the world a better place for African Americans and other people of color. I personally resided in Georgia on the coast near Tybee Island for over 2 years in the early 1980s as a young wife of an enlisted Army man. Meanwhile, my mom had married a Jamaican man, her 7th marriage here where I live, I'm not going to say where, during that same time frame. I happened to tell my next door neighbor, who was Black or African American, and got a stern caution to never tell anyone else. When I asked why not, she replied, because they'll burn your house down. The mysterious they were all my other Caucasian neighbors and their associates. It quickly became clear to me that I was living in a still segregated part of the U.S. Being 20 years old, I was shocked as this was not how I was raised by my mother, especially. Discoveries that playwrights bring to audiences resonate long after the show is over and can be either a thoughtful reminder of something that befell them in their past, or a stick to the heart of injustice residing within them. Take, for example, Parks' mentor, Wendy Wasserman, who was also a playwright as well as a feminist. Her works brought attention to the plight of women as a whole and the struggle of inequity. This may seem somewhat insignificant on a surface level, but when placed in the realm of theater to draw an audience's attention to a cascade of surmounting issues or even one issue, it can be effective and thought-provoking. Issues are in real life, and when brought to the stage, they can either bring up more controversy or perhaps bring up thoughtful discussions, bypassing boundaries and embracing parallels. This was the idea of not only Charles Ludlam, but of Parks, as they ventured on their individual paths of writing for the sake of not only expression and emergence of art and theater, but to take an idea and turn it into something tangible. This allows the playwright to honor his ancestry, affiliations, or feelings to gain a conveyance and be seen and heard. The same can be said for August Wilson, who writes from the African-American perspective in America throughout its growth and leaving behind this particular stasis in a culture. In 7 Guitars, Wilson shows audiences and readers the paths his characters have chosen and what has occurred during those choices. Whether they were responsible for some of these choices or not at fault due to the color of their skin is not even a question. It is transpiring regardless. Anyone in life can come from a poor background and then can be responsible for making negative or positive decisions based on this lack. The choice belongs to the individual. However, in our society, it may seem that certain members of society are more prone to being in places of insecurity rather than places to thrive. And due to this lack, this seems to inhibit their positive choices, forcing them to focus on the negative ones instead. And that is what I feel is at the bottom of Wilson's play. In order to be a survivor in this world, especially if at a disadvantage, you must overcome a plethora of odds. And while I understand this disadvantage and acknowledge its existence to a certain degree, I always told my sons that the following, being a single mother. You can be poor, but that doesn't mean you have to speak, look, or act poor. Always look your best when you go out. Never leave your waitress pennies. It's insulting. I was a waitress for a hot second before they were born, but I remember looking down at those miserable pennies left behind. Now, how much good that did in the long run of their lives, I'm not sure, as they were all grown up and scattered, and we don't keep in touch much anymore. But I hope I instilled in them a sense of living their best lives possible, even in the most extreme circumstances. Looking at these three playwrights, they're vastly different individual works, and their line of communicating thoughts of societal norms, customs, or standards that leave indelible marks upon us all as we travel through existence and try to make sense out of what is currently happening, why it is happening, and how to either stop it or make it continue. We see thoughtful processes of not only how they work or worked, but what they wanted to show the world through their lenses. It not only paralleled what was or had been going on in the world at the time or in the past, but it brought up ideas of how to make things better for certain cultures and races of people. This enhances all people in the long run as it educates and opens our eyes to situations we otherwise would not be privy to. People, or perhaps theater is the vehicle we need to move through around boundaries in order to observe the parallels more clearly between life and art, as well as see all the guitars in their various hues and colors to appreciate them that much more. The lines between these three playwrights' works is in fact not blurred. It has been refined to view more clearly and with distinct definition, while being able to appreciate the approach they each bring to the table. Each one brings a societal norm that is somehow being ignored, pushed aside, unknowable, or undefined, and by thrusting it forward with a heartfelt, absurd, or tragic way, we get to see it in a new light, one we wouldn't have thought of before or considered. And perhaps this has made the playwright the hero in the action of the play, winning over the villain every single time. So I hope you enjoyed my recountance of the three plays that I got to read about, to do some dissecting on, to research. And I know I've went over, it's over 13 minutes, but anyway, wish you a happy, blessed Christmas and holiday season, and whatever you celebrate, whether it's Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or what have you. And I wish you the best for you and your families, and take care. Bye.